everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of World Tennis. I'm Harry Cicma, just outside of New York City in the great state of New Jersey. And we have a very special guest, Brian Gottfried, joining us. Brian, you're a champion on and off the courts, one of the greatest singles players and doubles players in tennis history. Now you're coaching in Florida. So Brian, let's talk about many topics, but first, the state of Florida and what it means to you both as a player and a coach. How much do you love Florida tennis?
Well, Florida tennis is unique in that the primary thing that you'd notice is the weather. And we're playing outdoors about every day of the year, except in the 1 or 2 days that it rains all day. But most of the days we're outside. It's a great place to train because of the heat. And those are prime considerations when you're a tennis player. You got to be in good weather. There's not a lot of indoor play down here. There's no need for it. So you're constantly playing outdoors. You're constantly playing in the conditions, in the heat, in the wind. And those are great places to grow up. And because of that, I think great facilities have been developed in Florida, and because of that, lots of players have moved to Florida. So, as you move up on the tennis food chain, you need those better players, and if they're around you, all the better for your training.
And how has the state of Florida contributed to your tennis journey and really making you a better person on and off the courts?
So, the state of Florida, I would say, and Florida Tennis Association specifically. Well, let me clarify. The Florida Lawn Tennis Association, back in my years, which later became the FTA, contributed significantly. Besides organizing the tournaments around the state and giving me an opportunity to play and compete, I remember the state closed, which is now the Bobby Curtis state closed, was held in St. Petersburg. And everybody played in their own division. Everybody played that tournament. And if you did well, we got a nice cream-colored jacket and $50 to send us to the Nationals. So in that sense, it gave us a financial head start. But really, more than that, I would say, is the competition and what Florida was able to provide because of the weather, because of the good weather. The players are moving down. Even players that lived up north would spend the winters down here, so we would have the advantage of getting to play against them. A guy like Harold Solomon, for example, who grew up in Maryland, but he spent the winters in Florida, so we had the advantage, added competition. We became best of friends, but things like that would happen, and it was due to the fact that Florida had the weather, they had the tennis, the facilities, and here we are.
And when you look back at your amazing professional career, you never could have thrived without so much hard work in junior tennis. So what's your best memory from competing in the Florida State Junior Championship, which is considered to be one of the top junior championships in the world? There's so much talent. So when you look back at Florida junior tennis, what does it mean to you to compete in the state tournament?
Yeah. I had great memories of competing. Back in those years when Bobby Curtis was still alive, the tournament wasn't named after him, but it was just the state closed, and it was held in St. Petersburg. And there were few enough players that back in those years, you could host a tournament all at one site at the St. Petersburg Tennis Club. So that's where we held the state closed. And they built a stadium court there at the tennis center. So being able to get through that tournament and play the finals on the center court was a great occasion for a junior player. But we just had great memories, and we developed great friendships back in those years, friendships that still lasted over 60 years later, because these are the guys that we grew up with. And because of the strength of Florida tennis, these were the same players that we followed each other on the pro tour together. So they became my best friends. They became my fiercest rivals. But even to this day, we're best of friends. And those are the types of things that developed because of the system in Florida. I can remember we stayed at the El Rancho Hotel in St. Petersburg. Some of the fierce shuffleboard games we had back in those days when we were off the court, when we weren't playing our matches. But I think what meant how Florida created such a special atmosphere was after those years when we grew up, Bobby Curtis did get involved in junior tennis, and he was a pioneer in junior tennis. And what he meant for tennis, not only in Florida, but around the country, was just incredible. And what I mean by that is he was a great organizer. He was a great athlete, first off. He was a great softball player. But he was a great organizer. And he had a real passion for young people pursuing their passions in life. So he set up systems in Florida that the whole country would follow. So not only did we have great facilities, great competition, great players, we had great organizers that helped create the system that allowed us all to grow up in.
And there's much more coming up here on World Tennis. I'm Harry Cicma. We'll be right back after these brief messages. Hello everyone, I'm Harry Cicma. Welcome to another episode of World Tennis Television. We are here in our beautiful headquarters in New York City. It's now that time in the broadcast where we talk about some of the hottest topics in the sport of tennis. And right now we're going to dedicate this segment to one of the most underrated legends in the history of tennis, and that's Andre Agassi. Now, of course, Agassi is regarded as an all-time great. He is a Hall of Famer. He won 8 major titles. He won his first major title at Wimbledon, which was a surprise victory over the big serving Goran Ivanisevic, and that was definitely his breakthrough. But then Agassi proceeded to win 2 U.S. Opens. He won a handful of Australian Opens and also that legendary French Open title where he came back to beat Andre Medvedev in 5 sets. But what makes Agassi so special is also the fact that he won an Olympic gold medal. Now, Novak Djokovic won his first and only Olympic gold medal at the 2024 games where he beat Carlos Alcaraz. And that really completed Novak's career. And that also established Novak as the all-time best. You know, many times I was questioning if Novak was better than Rafael Nadal. However, after winning that Olympic gold, Novak established himself as the best. He's won all the major titles and also that Olympic gold, which Roger Federer never did in singles. However, prior to that, Agassi was one of the only players to ever win all 4 majors and the Olympic gold. And I really think that established him as quite possibly the number 3 or number 4 all-time best player, maybe even ahead of Roger Federer. I know that sounds wild, but Federer never won that gold, and it's so hard to do so. And of course, Pete Sampras, someone I grew up looking up to, had more Grand Slam titles than Agassi. Sampras had 14. However, Sampras never won a French and never won an Olympic gold medal. So prior to Novak winning that gold this year, I think Agassi really had a case to be right there behind Rafael Nadal, because Rafa has won all 4 and also an Olympic gold. Now, I think Andre also has done so much more for tennis because he's given people a belief that they can come back from some of the toughest moments in their lives on and off the court. And what makes tennis such a tough sport is that it's not only a physical sport and you're all by yourself, but it's a mental game. Some say that tennis is 80% mental and 20% physical, but you're all by yourself out there. You don't have a team to bring you back. You're also not competing against the clock. You're competing against your opponent and yourself. I mean, you could be up 6-0, 5-0, 40-love, and then if you have a breakdown, you can lose the match. So Agassi had a very tough moment in his life. He had a divorce with Brooke Shields and also had an injury, and his ranking fell well outside of the top 100. And Agassi was able to claw back with heart and determination and find a way to get back to number 1 in the world. And he proceeded to write his legendary book, which is titled Open. And he's inspired millions of people and also millions of children, and shown them that no matter how difficult times get physically and mentally, you can always claw back and get to the top spot. So I really think Andre Agassi will go down as one of the top 5 all-time best players. And he has done so much for the sport and is truly a wonderful person. I've had the privilege and pleasure to speak with Andre and thank him for all the inspiration. Well, I'm Harry Cicma. There's much more coming up here on World Tennis. We'll be right back. Hi everyone, I'm Harry Cicma. Welcome to our New York City headquarters. We are here for yet another episode of World Tennis TV. And it's now that moment in the broadcast where we talk about some of the hottest topics in the sport of tennis. And we're going to dedicate this week's segment to Alexander Zverev, a true veteran on the ATP Tour. I think what makes Zverev so special is the fact that he's come back from many heartbreaks on and also off the court. He's had a lot of drama off the court. It's well documented. However, on the court, he continues to give his heart and soul. He lost in the finals of the US Open to Dominic Thiem in 5 sets during the pandemic. He proceeded to lose in 5 sets to Carlos Alcaraz at the French Open, and then dropped the heartbreaker to Jannik Sinner in the Australian Open. And Zverev was clearly disappointed. He was shedding tears after those matches on international TV. But what's so impressive is he shows up each and every week and dedicates himself to this sport and battles in some of the toughest matches each year on the ATP Tour. Alexander's also developed his serve to be a great weapon. He not only has the pace, but he's also using the kick. He's such a tall player, using the out wide slice. So he is working on his game, and he is grinding from the baseline as well. So Alexander does have one big-time championship. He has won that Olympic gold medal, which was major for him. But now the question is, can he finally win that elusive Grand Slam singles tournament, which he wants so much? And he's once said that he doesn't want to be one of the best players of all time to never win a singles major title. So Give it up to Alexander Zverev, a true warrior on the courts and a journeyman in many respects on the ATP Tour. Despite the fact he's one of the best, he just continues to grind each and every week. Let's talk about Aryna Sabalenka. She is truly a champion right now, and her game continues to rise. What I like the most about Sabalenka is her ability to rebound despite tough losses. I remember when she lost to Coco Gauff in the US Open Finals a few years ago. It was a huge win for Gauff, and Sabalenka ultimately kind of choked it away. She wasn't playing well on the ground strokes. She was hitting so many unforced errors. And I really thought after that result that Sabalenka could be done. Honestly, it was a result that was heartbreaking, and I thought that could have been the changing of the guard on the women's tour with Coco Gauff taking over as the undisputed best player. But Sabalenka was able to rebound and continue to keep her composure. But what she does so well is she keeps a light atmosphere emotionally. She continues to have fun off the court. She loves to dance, loves to post on social media, and really has a good rapport with many of her fellow players on the WTA Tour. And I think that's really allowed her to do well on the court. She keeps the pressure off, and that's definitely been one of her great strengths thus far, making her the #1 player in the world. So she is definitely a player to watch for and one of the best players of all time. So let's give it up to Sabalenka, a player to watch here on World Tennis. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of World Tennis. I'm Harry Cicma, just outside of New York City in the great state of New Jersey. And we have a very special guest, Brian Gottfried, joining us. Brian, you're a champion on and off the courts, one of the greatest singles players and doubles players in tennis history. Now you're coaching in Florida. And there are so many great legends that have come from the state of Florida, not only pros, also college heroes. And are there any Florida legends that stand out in your mind who have made a notable impact in your career?
Okay, oh, I really had to do some thinking for this. You really wanted me to think. Some of the people that were influential in my career, whether they were administrators or coaches, volunteers, I can remember my very first, like I said, I was introduced to the game through some Japanese players that came for the Orange Bowl because they were brought over by Eddie Herr. So Eddie Herr was a man that I knew, and he would have to get the first nod as an influential person in my life. There were a couple of pros that helped me along the way. Abe Revman at North Miami Beach Tennis Center. And then from Abe, I was introduced to a guy named Nick Bollettieri, who I'm sure many of your audience has heard of. Nick was like a second father to me. I went to live with Nick when I was 9 years old at his summer house, where at the summer job that he was working at in Springfield, Ohio. And I did that for about 5 summers after that. There was a gentleman by the name of Al Mills who did the rankings back in those years, Dr. Al Mills. Gosh, there's a lot of people that influenced my career growing up. Some of my local coaches, Tommy Boyes, Nate Ritzenberg. Then I left for a few years to go away to high school. I went away to the Baylor School in Chattanooga, Tennessee. One of my coaches there was probably a familiar last name anyway, to a lot of the viewers, Jerry Everett, his brother Jimmy, down in Fort Lauderdale. We then moved to Fort Lauderdale, so Mr. Everett was an important part of my life at that point. After that, I left for college and pretty much left the state. So I would say that was the influence. But certainly, the people at the FTA that would organize tournaments, that would organize the state closed, and would allow us to get onto the national level tournaments, which was a continual jump up in our level of play, getting noticed in college. And so, lots of people in the office that probably were behind the scenes that meant a lot that I probably didn't even know. So let's say the whole FTA was a big part of it. The future of Florida tennis in the next 75 years, well, I really hope I'm around to see it. That would be the first thing. I would really, there were, obviously there are lots of academies, there's lots of places to learn the game. And I just want to encourage the young coaches to, have a passion for this game, develop a passion, and develop that passion in their young players. Because if you have a passion for the game, you grow up into people like me who, at 71, still can't get enough of it. And I try to hit every day, and I love to watch it. I love to pass along the knowledge that I've picked up and the passion to young players, and also the things outside the lines that my coaches would have passed along to me. Whether it's saying thank you to tournament directors at the end of a tournament, or calling balls that hit the line good instead of out. We know what the rules are, but sometimes in the heat of battle, that changes things. But there are things that were passed along that were long, time-tested, good things to learn. They're still good to learn. So it's not only, but the game of tennis teaches us so much. It teaches you how to be motivated. It teaches you how to work hard, how to pursue something you love. There are no excuses out there because you're out there by yourself. So you look at the scoreboard and it tells you everything you have to know. Some of the things that are a little bit difficult for me as somebody that played quite a few years ago is my coach told me, don't display any emotion out there. So when I see players on the court and the emotion is look at me, it doesn't set right with me, because you've got an opponent on the other side of the net and you don't want to belittle the opponent because the scoreboard generally just did that. If you won the match, the opponent knows you've won the match. They don't feel great. We would walk off the court and in most cases you didn't know who won or lost other than to look at the scoreboard. So as an old timer, I look at that and I say, I don't quite agree with that. I understand it happens, and Sports Center always captures the glamorous moments, or the if you hit the tweener is always a big thing for Sports Center. The guy that wins 6-3, 6-3 sometimes doesn't get the notoriety, but guess what? He's playing the match tomorrow, and the guy that hit the tweener may not be. So that's the bottom line. But coaches along the way would have given me that type of advice, and I would hope that coaches that pass along advice to their players in the future can pass along similar things.
Well, Brian Gottfried, thank you so much for everything, and thank you for joining us here on World Tennis. We appreciate everything you're doing both on and off the courts. So for the rest of the staff, I'm Harry Cicma. Thank you for joining us, and so long from New York City.